Welcome back. So in this session today we are going to see a new topic on the WebdriverIO, that is how to find the broken links in your web page. Now think about a situation where you have lots of links that could be like your internal linking, like one of the link that is navigating to another screen on your same application, or let's say that you have included some of the other domain or other third-party links as well, or probably let's say that you are linking to some other website. Now in that case you need to test that all of these links for this particular screen, is the links are really working fine or not. Now one of the easy way that anybody can say is that you can just go through each of the link and then click on this, and then it really populates the required content, then it has to be working fine. But in reality that is very difficult to really do that. Now what would be the best option? The best option is to fetch all the links on that particular page or entire application, get the links from there. Now if you see that each link is associated with an href, I will be taking this particular button and I will be inspecting, and you can see that this button is surrounded by an A tag. Now if you see that this is basically an A tag which is holding the a particular URL. Now this href is nothing but a link actually. Now what I can do, I can really use any kind of API testing framework or some kind of library where I will put this URL into the GET request. Now what will happen, that particular library will let me know that what is the status for this. Now for an instance, let's say that I want to check manually. Copying this one, right click, copy, and let's say that I'm going to here, I will put this URL into here. Now, and I will be turning on my inspect, and let's go to this, and now let's run this, or I'm just loading that particular URL. Okay. Now when I'm loading this one, right, you can see that it is nothing but it is hitting to a server actually. Now that server is nothing but that particular URL, and if you see that it gives me a kind of a status. If it is working fine, it will give me a status code of 200. Let's say that I'm doing a wrong URL. Let's say that I'm just typing something, and on this I'm entering it. Okay, and you can see that this URL is returning me a 404. It means that each URL loading, either it is 200, 300, 400. So there are status codes, we know, right? The HTTP status codes. Now based on fetching this status code, we can come to know if a particular URL is really working fine or not, so that you don't need to really load it and visualize or like fetch whatever the error it is coming and then verify that. So that is what we are going to do that. Now in case of WebdriverIO, there is no inbuilt the API testing libraries they have attached. There are a lot of different libraries are available into the market for JavaScript. You can use Supertest, you can use Node-Fetch. So these are, or Axios. So these are very popular API testing libraries are available. But today pretty much it is similar, all these libraries, but we are going to see the Node-Fetch, because recently I got to a news that the Node.js, right, the Node.js currently I'm using the 16, but probably when the 18 LTS, the long time support will come, at that time the Node-Fetch will become part of your node actually. So it is becoming more popular, so that's why I wanted to showcase that. It's very easy to set up that. So at this moment I don't have the LTS 18 because it's not yet released, but then with my Node.js 16 it is not coming as default. Okay, so I will be letting you know if you are at Node.js 16 or 17 or below to that, how do you really install the Node-Fetch on your project. So for this, if I go to the GitHub project, now the installation is simple as any Node package manager. You can just use the npm install Node-Fetch. Okay, now at this moment I would recommend to not to use the 3.x, because 3.x actually requires your project to be compatible with ES module. Now the current WebdriverIO, the version that I'm using, the 7, it is not really compiled with the ES module. So I will show you a link which it clearly describes actually what is basically, and it will take some time to what you call to migrate that. So if I go to this project, like if you see that they have mentioned that they're waiting for someone to contribute this, where it is at this moment it is not compatible because they are using the jest, which is not allowing them to migrate to ESM compatible project actually. So no worries, it is very specific. I mean, the requirement that which we are dealing with, that doesn't require actually the latest version of the node fetch, but whenever we will be getting that a default node.js, by that time your WebDriver project would be migrated to ESM module, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay, so at this moment I will be going to use the 2 version actually. So as you can see, they have clearly mentioned about the how to install this. So I will copy paste. The first thing is that let me open my package.json. so at this moment you see there is no node fetch, but I will go to the command prompt and I will just make it as clear, and in this I will be copy pasting this node fetch 2, so which will be installing the version 2 actually, and you can see it would be installing the node fetch. Let me see that. Okay, it installed global actually, so no worries. I will do one thing, I'll put it save dev, so it will be installing into my dev dependency, and you can see that it is coming. At the same time I will be installing the type module as well. So I will say type. Okay, so type and then node fetch 2, and you can see the type node fetch is also installed. Fine, simple. Now let's see how what is the documentation says. So if I go to a basic script here, so it is nothing but you need to use the fetch as a keyword actually, which you will be getting it. So you can see that import fetch from node fetch, and after that you just need to use the fetch method, and inside that you will be keeping the URL. Now this fetch will return a response, and based on that response you can get the headers, you can get the status message, and all those things you can get it. Now our basic requirement is that get all the links from this particular screen, and then do a fetch for each URL, and then get the status code. If the status code is 200 or 300, then the URLs are working fine. There are certain URLs, if you see here, this is one of the URL. If I click on this, and you can see that it really goes to the 500 error actually. You can see that actually I have redirected to one of the internet Heroku app. Okay, and then there is a 301 and 404. 404 is page not found. So if you see any page that you are looking for, and then if it is not available, so it will give me. So we have actually 200. 200 means successful. Like if you go to this home button, it would return you a 200. Like this different types of links it could be there in your application. Fine. So I will be creating a new file, and let's say that I will keep the name as broken links.ts file. Okay, and I will be taking some content from here, and then I will be just adding it to here. Okay, so the first thing is that I need to use the fetch actually. So I will just say import. Okay, now that fetch actually I will be keeping it. Now let's say how do I get all the links actually from this particular web application. So I will just say await $a, and we know that this is the tag name for all the links that is available. So this returns me all the links of this particular page actually here. Now in this case what I'm going to do, I will be looping it. So looping it in this sense, I will be looping all the links from this particular $a. Now in this case I will be running a async, and then I will be capturing all the link, as I said, the individual links, and then I will be keeping inside this. Now what I'm going to do here, Now see, these are links actually. Like if you go to the application here, now these are all the links. Now if you see, each A is associated with an href, right? So can I get the href attribute? So I will quickly say that await, okay, await, and link is my element dot get attribute of href. Okay, now once I got it, then I will put a then statement and again a sync, and here I'm getting individual hrefs from there. Okay, and then I will say inside this I will be doing a fetch here. So I will say await and I will be calling that fetch method. Now inside this I will be putting that href. Okay, as simple as that. Now once I get this fetch, now what this fetch will return me? This fetch will return me a particular, what do you call, a response actually. Let's say the response is this one. Now I will be getting this. Now if I call this response dot status, now this status is nothing but it will give me either 200, 300, 400 or 500. Now I need to play with this particular status actually. Now let's say that I'm expecting all of my responses of each link should return me 200 or 300, let's say that. Now this one I will be doing to match. Okay, so I'm expecting either 200 or 300 because that is the positive scenario. Now if you see this to match method, this should accept a regular expression. Now if you go to the JavaScript regular expressions, I will be giving a simple expression actually here. Now let's do like this. So I will explain after this. Okay, so now this will return me, so this will match anything that is starting with 2 or 3 because that is my requirement actually. Either any of the 200 series or 300 series, this response status should come. In that case only the links are working fine. If it is anything else, then it should fail my test. Okay, so we will be doing certain changes to this, but let's first run this particular test and see if it really works fine or not. So I will go to the WebdriverIO and here I will be changing this. Now I will open my terminal and clear it and I will say npm run WebdriverIO. Okay, so it returned a couple of errors. Let's see what is that error. Now here it is telling that type error, only absolute URLs are supported. Now what is this absolute URL and the what do you call relative URL? I'll show you that in the application. Now let's get into the application. Now if you see this particular A, right, A tag, here the href is /demo. Now what is this /demo? So this means that it is the absolute URL. It is not taking the complete URL. Now this one, how this does go, you know, so this is my base URL, okay, up to here, qapbox.github.io. Now the demo and links, these are my absolute URLs. Like if I go to the demo, then it will be my, so only demo, when I'm putting /demo, it will be base URL /demo. So here the demo only is an absolute URL. Now the job is to convert this particular URL, right? I mean, whichever we got it from here, this one into a relative URL. In this sense, I need to convert this one to a complete URL. How do I do that? So there is a way that I will showcase you, but I need to do a specific change here. Now if you see, I have hard coded the entire URL, right? Now in this case, I will be splitting this. Now if you say this one base URL equal to, now I will be keeping this entire URL here. But in this case, as I told, it's a base URL, so it should be having no slash and the path, actually it should be like this. Now how do I call it? Now here what I'm going to do, if you remember in the page object concept, we have understood this one already. So I will give a dollar and then inside this I will be putting this URL. That's it. Now here just remove it and then it would automatically, what do you call, evaluate that. Now this is my base URL and these are the path actually where I want to navigate for this particular test case. Now the same thing, now see the hrefs are, all the href are, some are absolute, some are your what you call relative. Now for this, now whichever is relative, that should have an http, right? If it is an absolute url like we have seen the demo, now that is my absolute, and if you see that this particular href don't have the https, now what am I going to do here? A simple if condition that I will be putting here. Okay, so here what I will do, if what the href not contains, so or not starts with what, http. Now if it is not started with means I need to put a negation here, right? So I will put a negation. So if it is not starting with my what you call http, then you convert that into the absolute url actually, or sorry, the relative url. Now for this I will be creating a new url. Now I will say this as string. Okay, I'm keeping this as string, a variable actually. Now inside this what am I going to do? URL equal to, how do I append that? There are a lot of different ways. You can simply use the like URL equal to href, or like the base URL plus you can say that the href, or else you can use this way also, new URL. Now if you see that this accepts two strings, one is the path actually, and then the base URL. Now the same thing I need to do here. What is my path? My path is href. Now what is the base URL? Base URL is this one actually, which initially I got it. See, in your real-time project, I'm hard coding here, but if you remember our previous sessions, we have got this base URL from the wdio-conf.ts, right? If you remember here, yeah, you see that I can fetch this one directly into my test case also. Let me show you that. So there is a way what you can do. You can use browser.config because it is coming from config, and when you put dot and base URL, you see that now this also gives you the base URL for project. Now this one directly you can copy paste here so that you don't need to hard code in any of the test cases. Now this is one of the way also you can do it. Now here it is throwing error actually. Now you see that URL is not assignable to a string. Now when you say new URL, the type of return type is URL. So what I can do, I can put like this also. Now here one thing, I will show you whatever the test links that is coming before and after it is appending. So for this I will be simply writing a debug here. So before the link was different. Now if it is not containing the href, then what is that particular URL, and then after you appended that, what would be the URL? So this should be URL actually here. Or else what you can do here, simply you can just remove the concept of href here, and I will just say directly here, and everything is URL only. Okay, no need of anything else. Okay, so inside this then I'm doing all these things. Okay, and here in this fetch I'm taking that URL by making all the absolute URLs to relative. If it is already relative, then no need to do anything. After that I'm taking this response. Now this response status I'm matching with 200 and 300. Now the actual error what it was coming, the absolute URLs, now I have handled it. Now let's see if it really works fine or not. Okay, so okay, it seems there is still, oh okay, yeah, so this is unexpected. I will tell you why this test case got failed. Now if you see that there were one instance where your absolute URL, you got it as this one, which captured the href as a slash demo, but after you have converted, you see that the base URL is appended with your absolute URL to make it as a relative. So after this actually our everything is, steps are working fine. But when you really fetch it, right, now there are a lot of URLs that you are getting. In that all of the URLs, two URLs were not matching with the 200 or 300. That is what it is coming. So one URL returned 500 and then another URL. Now if you see the individual steps into the spec reporter, you see that expected 500. So it means that actually I should have changed to this one, expect this one to match this response status. Means I was expecting actually something like 200 or 300, right? But it is coming as 500. Another link returned 404, so which is not matching. But you see, we had actually one response status as 300, right? But that is not coming because the expect statement got passed. So anything 200 series or 300 series, there is no issues because of this matcher that got executed and your test step got passed. There are a lot of different ways also, like I saw some of the articles, they were maintaining a simple concept actually here, like what they used to do. Now here I can even say to be less than, so there is even another option to be less than 400, because I'm expecting all my statuses should be less than 400, which is nothing but 200 series and 300 series. You can even make it as a simpler way. I was just keeping this as a regular expression because tomorrow, let's say that you want to only deal with 400 series only. Now it can like return, like let's say that 230 or 400 series, anything, sorry, 301, 302. How do you handle it? So like think about, you are just expecting all the links should be 300 series only. How do you do that? So you need to put a condition to be less than 400 but greater than 300. In that case, you can just use this matcher actually. So it is always good to good practice to learn different ways, and then you can handle it depending on this scenario that you are getting it. Fine. Now there could be another instance where let's say that you want to understand what are those links. Now you just got that which links are, how many links are got failed actually on your screen, but you really cannot identify, right, what links are really returning 400 or 500. So you can even do that as well. So for an instance, let's say that if any response status is not 400, I mean if it is more than 400, what you can do, you can even print some failure messages also. I'll show you that. So there is something called as, like if you do this, so there is something called as context actually, define with context. You can see this method. Now what this does, here you can literally, you can give any kind of failure message. So if you would have read before what it used to be happening, in this particular method only, you can do a comma and you can put something actually, any failure message. Like if your expect is failing, then you can send a customized message to your console actually. But if you see that they are saying that the expectation fail output, this particular parameter is got deprecated, instead you use the with context. Now if you see the Jasmine documentation, they are suggesting to use this particular method actually. Now here I can give a particular statement actually, which would give you a detailed message when it is getting failed. Now I'm just copy pasting this and then I will explain you. So I'm just keeping it, and you know this with context will only display whenever your expect statement is failing actually. So if you see this link, await link.getText. Now what is link.getText? This link is individual link element, right, from your multiple elements, and then plus returned a status. You can even see returned a status of what? Status of response dot status. Now so you just compare it. Now you see that expected 500 to match this one, but now you should see a correct message actually if it is failing. Now let's rerun the same test. Okay, now let's look into the test case, and you can see that it's not just giving this expect statement, but it is giving a customized message also. So these are the different ways where you can handle actually this broken link concept. If there is all the what you call links are working fine, then you won't be getting any kind of errors. Let me show you that. Now think about, I want to just go into the demo actually. Okay, into this particular. Now if you see into the demo, here almost all the links are working fine, that I'm confident. Now let's see if my test case is passing or not. Okay, a positive scenario, let's see. Okay, and you can see that no context message, nothing, everything got printed, and you can see almost all the links are absolute links only into that particular screen. But you see that before it was coming slash demo, now it appended. So like this you can handle actually. Now see, if you see that here I have used almost like a single shot method actually, where I'm using, it's just 3 steps I'm doing. One is I'm fetching the individual links from multiple multiple links, then I'm converting that as an relative URL, and then I'm getting the response. Now there is one more way actually where all these 3 things you can even separate it, like you can use the async await and separately you can use that. But in that case you don't have the liberty to fetch the link text and all those things. Now I won't be taking repeating the same. I will showcase you one URL actually. So if you see this particular what you call check broken links into the WebdriverIO, he actually very clearly explained the individuals, and with some kind of shortcuts also it has been explained. So if you want to just have everything as an individual by assigning some variables, and then you can just verify that, you can do it. But if you want to get the link text and also all the details, then you need to make sure that you are keeping it inside one loop only. Then only you will have all the information together actually. Now I will give you one more what you call tip actually on this. So what you can do in real time, there are a lot of different requirements you could have. One is actually you can send that link directly, okay, from your test case, and you just need to verify whether it is returning 200 or not. Or else let's say that a particular screen where actually it should give you like what are the broken links are available for you, okay, a kind of a list or kind of an what you call array or something. In that case you need to use like this. But if it is just to verify if an individual link is really working fine or not, in that case you don't really need to do all these things. You can write a utility method actually where you need to just deal with from here to here, or else let's say that from here to here, because that link which you are providing or the href which you are providing may not be handled with the absolute URL or the relative URL. Okay, you need to convert that into a relative URL. So this entire code block you can put it into a utility method, just pass this URL and return that particular link get text, okay, and the response status. These 2 things as an array you can send it from that particular method. Now this particular method you can call it anywhere in your framework. So you need to just do little bit customization depending on your need, but the concept is definitely it has to be like this here. Okay, hope this session is helpful. Please do subscribe and stay tuned for more topics into this YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.